Hello viewers. Now I've got some really good news for you because finally we have an audience with the all-new, all-electric Mini. Now, when I say new, I really mean new because it shares nothing with the current car. It's got a brand new chassis, it's got a brand new interior, and it's even built in a brand new country. In fact, this Mini Electric is so new, it actually comes with a brand new name. Oh, sort of. It's actually called the Cooper, which is now specific to this three-door body style, and it fronts a whole new range of Mini models coming over the next 12 months. That's partly why this new electric retro runaround has taken so long to come to market. Now, there will be a new petrol version coming soon. We'll talk about that a little bit later, and a convertible as well. But for now, let's focus on this electric model because there is so much to show you. It looks like a Mini, right? Well, I suppose that's kind of the point with these sorts of cars, but all of those classic Mini design traits are there. Things like the glazed-in black pillars and the contrasting roof. But the whole thing is now much cleaner, especially if you sit it next to the existing car. Now, there's something else that's missing as well. The wheel arch lining that goes on the standard cars that have been around since 2001, they've also gone as well. Now, these headlights might look the same, but they're actually a little bit bigger and much more flat, which means that the whole thing looks a little bit more upright and less sort of domey than the old car. And there's another thing as well. You might notice that this car's got an S badge, but it doesn't have a bonnet scoop. That's also new for this one as well.
Each of these variants will be available in 3 trims: Classic, Sport and Exclusive, each with a varying level of standard equipment. There's due to be a range of snazzy new wheel designs in 16 to 18-inch options, and the usual combination of exterior colour schemes and contrasting roof finishes.
Now, there's another new reason why this new Mini looks slightly different to the last ones, and it has everything to do with the front bonnet. Now, kind of like Aston Martin's done with the new DB12, Mini's ditched the front clamshell, which means that there's now these shut lines where previously there were none. It also means that this section around the corner that used to highlight some indicators or some grills is now completely clean, helping with that minimalist vibe. The thing is though, if you actually look at the bonnet, it finally has some real shape to it. I mean, you could almost see a bit of a shoulder line at the back, and that's brand new. It's also got some real flair and some undercuts as well, which for me looks great and gives the whole thing a lot more shape where the last one didn't. Now at the rear, there are more changes, highlighted by these new taillights, which have a sort of dot matrix thing going on. Now that's very on trend, but also it means that you can actually change the lighting signature from these to a couple of other options from the inside of the cabin. Now as to the actual shape of the taillights, yeah, they're quite different to the last one, and they kind of sort of scream Batman to me a little bit, but I still think they're actually quite cool. Overall though, the rear end looks much wider because of those extra haunches. And even though this model has quite a simple design, there is sportier John Cooper Works models coming soon that'll butcher it all up a little bit. But the coolest thing about this car is on the inside. You know how every now and then you jump into a car and it feels about 3 generations newer than the one that came before it? Well, that's the case here. As you'd expect, the whole interior is dominated by this 240mm or 9.5-inch-ish screen. Now it's OLED and it combines both the infotainment system and all of the driver information system into the one display. Underneath the screen, there's this sort of bank of switches here which control the gears and also the driver modes or experiences, which is what Mini is calling it now these days. It's really cool. There's the park button here, and this is the controller for the gear selector. And to start the car, it's just a twist. Now the experiences are also done through this toggle switch here, and it changes everything from the interior lighting to the screen's background as well. Now certain modes also have different changes to the steering weight or the throttle response, but by and large it's mostly about this interior ambience. As for the rest of the interior, it's just as cool. This upholstered dashboard has a houndstooth fabric, and there's actually also a little projector behind the screen that puts little shapes and colours depending on that driver mode onto the dashboard itself. The steering wheel is also new, but only the top spec cars get this cool fabric third spoke. Otherwise, it's 2-spoke and it's sort of smaller than before and looks really cool too. But what's really impressing me is how clever and nuanced the design is. They've scalloped this dashboard back despite the screen being here, and it makes it a lot more airy than the sometimes claustrophobic previous car. It's also fairly well made, and the plastics in here, despite being a pre-production model, are also really good. Considering that I'm sat on a stack of batteries, the driving position is actually quite low as well. You don't sit quite as low in the last car, but you do feel similarly ensconced. However, overall interior size is probably about where the car was before, which means that if you're about my height, which is 5'7" on a good day, you will be able to fit behind yourself, but 4 adults might be a bit of a squeeze. And the boot, well, that sits at about 200 litres, which is at about this class standard. So it's a little bigger than a Fiat 500e, but nowhere near as big as something like a Vauxhall Corsa E.
Now it's probably time that we talk about the figures. There'll be 2 forms of Mini Electric from launch, a base Cooper Electric E and the Cooper Electric SE that you see here. Each come with their own battery pack and a front-mounted electric motor. The Cooper E's smaller pack has a 40.7 kWh capacity, with its electric motor producing 179 brake horsepower. Mini is quoting a 199-mile WLTP range, and it can be charged at up to 75 kilowatts on a DC charge. The Cooper Electric SE ups the battery size to 54.2 kilowatt-hours and comes with a more substantial 214 brake horsepower and 330 Nm of torque. Range is quoted at 249 miles and comes with faster charging speeds at up to 95 kilowatts, charging the battery from 10 to 80% in 29 minutes. The flip side of the extra battery capacity is that a Mini Cooper Electric SE specified like this weighs in at a fairly chunky 1600 kilograms, with the smaller battery model weighing around 100 kilograms less. These numbers really do put it in a class of 1 for now though, as potential rivals like the Fiat 500e is both smaller and cheaper, while mainstream alternatives like Peugeot's E208 or the Vauxhall Corsa E will do similar mileage but at generally lower costs.
So, what do you think? Personally, I think it's a massive breath of fresh air. It looks really clean and futuristic while also imbuing all of those classic Mini traits that we all know and love. Let me know what you think in the comments below.